Hola, ¿cómo estás, witchlings? Today, I want to make a video about a lovely, amazing folk saint. A person, a deity, who has helped me with many things in my life. So upon this day, I'm going to make this video and talk about her, and that being the lovely Santa Muerte. On this day, and in this video, I'm going to tell you about her, how I worship her, how you can worship her, and how I pray the rosary in my practice with her. This video is an educational video to explain Santa Muerte to those who are new to her practice, to those who might be fear-mongered about her. This video is a video for those who seek knowledge about her and seek knowledge for religion in general. In this video, I will talk about her attributes, her associations, her robe colors, her offerings, and I will talk about the rosary prayer to her. This is a very meaningful video, as I am doing this as a devotional offering to her, to show respect to her and to show my love for her. And hopefully, if this video reaches you, it helps you out. And with that, let's get started. So, who is Santa Muerte, you might ask? Well, Santa Muerte is a Catholic folk saint from the beautiful region of Mexico. She's often depicted and known for her skeletal figure. She's often known as the leading face of one of the fastest growing religions in the entire world. She's known for her many robe colors and her ability to bestow many blessings. She is often seen as the protector of queer people and those who are ostracized and outcasted by the church. She's a defender of poor people, of night workers, and those who ask for her guidance and for her protection. Santa Muerte is known obviously for her robe colors, like I said, and she is often seen as what people would consider a narco saint, which I will debunk a little bit in this video. She is the patron saint of death, which death is not a scary thing, as death is a part of the natural world and the natural order. Santa Muerte is an excellent deity, an excellent teacher. She guides and she protects, as long as you give her respect and proper worship. Now, her role as a saint is not really recognized by the Catholic Church, unfortunately, for they see too many pagan aspects within her. However, she's often a very wonderful deity to worship, in my personal opinion. You will often see her online being associated as like a scary, evil, or quote-unquote demonic force. But her role goes way deeper than that, like way deeper than that, in my personal opinion, my bad. She goes way deeper than that in the aspects of her worship. She has ancient ties and ancient origins to the Mexican culture. Now, you might be asking me, who are the Mexican? Who are they? Well, the Mexican is actually what the original name for the Aztecs is, and that is also where Mexico got its name from. Mexico, Mexican, Mexico. So yes, she has ties to the ancient Aztec death goddess. I'm sorry to my Mexican viewers if I mispronounce this. Mictlantecuhtli, I think, because I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to pronounce the L at the end of it. She's often seen as coming forth or stemming from this ancient death goddess, who rules with her husband in the underworld, Mictlantecuhtli. Now, Santa Muerte can be seen as this ancient goddess, but Santa Muerte herself is her own thing in her own right. Santa Muerte was worshipped in a way by the ancient Mexicans. In a way, whenever the Spaniards came in and introduced the Abrahamic religions to convert them. And unfortunately, those cultures were almost entirely lost, but there still is a living piece of them in our world, and I'm thankful that they still exist. Because the Mexicans are personally one of my favorite indigenous groups. That with the Amazons, of course. I love Amazons. Now, Santa Muerte has a very unique role when it comes to this whole platform of Mexican worship and then Catholicism. She is in her own lane. She is Santa Muerte. She is her own being, her own spirit, her own deity. She is a mix, sort of the indigenous culture and Catholicism. She is very much, like I said, her own being. Excuse me, oh, the flame. I was pouring out some wax, my apologies. She is very much her own deity, her own goddess, her own personified being. She is a patron of those in Mexico. And her origins are kind of like mishy-mashy, but her worship, nonetheless, is vastly growing and vastly expanding. And with that, I'm going to start talking about more of who she is and what she has dominion over. Now back to Santa Muerte and her connection to the Mexican religion, in a way. She does have a statue type called Santa Muerte Azteca, which often shows her in tribal outfitting with big headdresses and large feathers and more Mexican themes. The Mexican are obviously the Aztecs, so yes, this would fit her in a way, because she is seen as either Mictlantecuhtli or a descendant of hers by some people. I personally think that she could be a descendant of Mictlantecuhtli or her own being, like how I said. But she's not only known for that, she's also known for her robe colors and personality, which I will talk about her personality right now. Her personality, she's a very stern yet embracing deity. She is death itself and death incarnate. Therefore, she is all embracing, but she is stern, she is firm. She is very much of a grandmotherly figure, I would say that. And I mean that in no ill intent to insult her, but she's very much of a crone-esque woman. She's a very stern goddess, and her personality is that she doesn't get along with other deities. That's a theme that I keep on saying. Seeing amongst those who either worship her or talk about her. This is the part that I want to talk about, because yeah, she does have a stern, very strong mindset, but she is loving, she's all embracing, she embraces every being and every spirit, but not every spirit or being embraces her. The main reason why a lot of people often see struggle in their practice with her and other saints is because of the other saint. You see, a lot of the Catholic saints might not like her because she has more of a pagan or savage motif, as people would say, or what those saints were against. Now, when it comes to worshiping other deities with her, like Hecate, for example, who I've had no problem worshiping her with, she is very chill, very polite, and very modest. I have seen no issue when it comes to worshiping her with other deities. But when it comes to other saints, those saints might not pair very well. And so that might reflect on Santa Muerte's personality. It might reflect on that. And that can be seen as some sort of like fear-mongering type thing. But it's not intentionally supposed to be like that. It is simply her standing her ground, standing for the fact that she is equal to all these other people, in a way. That she is trying very hard to be a benevolent deity, to honor her worshippers, to give them blessings. She works very well with deities like Yeshua and Yolf and whatever you call the supreme Christian deity. I personally say Abraxas, but nonetheless, she does get very well along with other deities, especially ones that rule over death and are protectors. And I want to talk more about her personality, because her personality is often, and who she is also often connected to a lot of bad or misfortunate things, like, oh, she'll ruin your life, oh, wham, wham, my poor soul is gonna get cast by the Reaper's scythe back into the underworld where my tarnation self is gonna get poked in the butt by demons all day. Let's be for real. Santa Muerte is not gonna fuck you up. Let's be honest with that. Unless you're, an enemy of one of her worshippers, but still, she protects. Violence is usually not an answer with her, because she is death. She does not rule over violent death. She rules over all aspects of death, but she is a very kind, very saintly aspect of death. She does not rule over the violence of death. She is death incarnate simply. And a lot of her worshippers that are, in my personal opinion, not true worshippers, will often test her a lot of the time. Santa Muerte is a very generous and giving deity. She will give what your heart desires as long as you honor her and you love her and you treat her with respect. But if you treat her with arrogance and hatred and you only use her as a tool, you will not get anything out of it whatsoever. That is her personality. She is not transactional. People will view her as transactional, but she is not. She is a commitment for life. Worshipping her is not simply a one-time thing. You either do it or you don't do it. You can't enter it, you can't get a rosary, and then stop praying to her. This is where people are like, oh, she ruined my life, she destroyed everything. No, she didn't. You started not worshiping her anymore, and you started being disrespectful. Santa Muerte will give you many blessings, but she does not take shit. She doesn't. Alright, she is death incarnate. She has seen through thousands of years what humanity can be like, and she knows when someone mortal is at fault. Santa Muerte will give you blessings simply because you are nice, because you give offerings, because you've prayed to her devoutly. But disrespect her and stop worshiping her. She will leave, of course, because you want her to leave, but all the things that you prayed for with her power will leave with her. And that is the same thing with any deity. Any deity. You cannot simply disrespect a deity and refuse to worship them because you think your life is in a stable area or in a stable manner. No, you cannot do that. because that is not something that is very chill, and that is something that she does not handle. She will not have that. You will not treat her with disrespect and then expect blessings. You will expect nothing from her if you disrespect her. Just saying. Her personality, like how I've been saying, is very stern, but very loving. She's a wonderful goddess, and she warms my heart with her worship. I have a personal struggle with her one time, but I will get to that later in the video, which will be at the end of the video. But for now, I do want to talk about her amazing robe colors. And with that, let's get into it. So, what is with this whole robe color thing? Well, when it comes to Santa Muerte, her robe colors are very similar to the Greek epithet, in my opinion. Different titles, different names, different looks, different appearances, different meanings. Her traditional 3 colors of her robes are white, red, and black. Now, her robe colors are used to often call upon the various aspects of Santísima Muerte. She has many robe colors that all have different things and different meanings, but those are simply just for us to channel those aspects, to call upon those aspects of Santa Muerte. There is no different Santa Muerte. There's only one Santa Muerte. She just has many names, many colors, and many powers. The robe color is simply just used for us to focus on an intention and to match the intention of her and what we call upon her for. It is simply to match the intention of our prayers and the spells that we do. Like I said, black, white, and red are all her traditional colors. It is important when it comes to Santa Muerte to honor her traditional colors. This thing is gonna give me a stroke, I swear, but it's so cute. And it is very important to honor her traditions, to honor who she is. So, let's talk about her traditional robe colors, like I said. So, for example, her traditional colors are black, red, or white, black, and red. I'm going to put them in an order like that. White, red, black. White. Her white robe is seen as the best robe for beginners when it comes to worshiping her and praying to her, because it is a simple starting point for it. Her white robe is very good for beginners because her white robe can be used for any intention. It is very good for beginner prayers. It is very good for general protection, cleansing, and introducing yourself to Santa Muerte very slowly if you are just now starting worshiping her. Now, you can start with different colors. You don't have to start with white. You don't. You really don't. But white is a good color for beginners, as in people who have not started their spiritual lives yet. That would be the color I would recommend if you are a beginner. It is a very good color for purity, blessings, holy magic, and is a good substitute color. And it's a wonderful color to start with, like how I said, and it connects you to her welcoming and embracing aspects. Now let's talk about her red color, which is, in my opinion, the second step. The second step, which is red. Red is more, it's just more intense than white, but not as intense as black. This is where you really start your Santissima worship. It's really where like you start getting into your power when it comes to worshiping her. Because red is the middle stage, in my opinion. Red rules over love in all aspects. It rules over the connection and the emotional bonds between others. It also signifies in this level that you are connected and bonded to her, and that you trust her, and that you honor her properly. In this color, she is a stronger protective force. She is very good for protecting you and for showing love and connecting emotional bonds between two people or more people. This is a very good color to start with, as it really dives into her as a goddess of emotional support and transformation. This color really puts you into your confidence. It puts you into who you are. It puts you in the middle ground for her worship and for her blessings. This is a middle marker that really shows that you are having full potential, and this aspect of her often will be an aspect for love. This color is actually on my rosary. If I can get it close enough to the camera without burning myself. Let's see. Right there. Yeah. There's multiple beads on my rosary that have her. Multiple of them. This aspect of her really shows her aspect as a loving, benevolent deity who opens her arms to anybody, and it shows you how to be compassionate towards others and how to be one with others. Now let's talk about black. Black, yes, black is a color that I personally started with. I started with this color because I have been practicing for a while, and I worship Hecate and other quote-unquote dark deities. I don't call them that, but this really did like come out at me. It really showed me that I was ready in a way. Whenever you feel drawn to an aspect of Santissima Muerte, it means that aspect is for you. And this was the color that called to me. Black is often used as the final level, as in you are ready to start doing spell work, you are ready to go out and play bigger games, you are introduced into your practice. This is a final staple, and is her most intense and scary aspect. This color often rules over extreme protection, the creation and destruction of curses and hexes. It signifies her dominion over the intranquil spirit, which is a spirit in Mexican traditions that is like the restless dead. It is a very strong aspect. It is not advised for beginners to start with this color at all. A lot of people will say that you are very lucky to start with the black color, and I view myself as very lucky for starting with the black color, because Santa Muerte is very intense in this aspect. It really reflects on her aspects as a goddess of death and of protection and of transformation. It is a very strong robe color. Very, very strong robe color. It connects you to her darkest aspects, to her most ferocious aspects. It aids in absolute protection, concealment in the shadows, invisibility, and dominion over the intranquil spirits in her name. This really goes into her darker aspects as a deity of death. For death, this is her more scary aspect. Death can be scary in a way, it can be violent, it can be painful. This is her aspect of that in a way. Yep. This is unmerciful, very strong protection. she will guard you very powerfully in this aspect. There will be almost nothing, if nothing, that can harm you whenever you have her in your corner. She's very powerful in this aspect, and she's a deity that most would not cross, that none should cross, in my opinion. Now, let's talk about the significance of her robe colors and what they actually mean. Her robe colors are supposed to be said in the feminine words for them in Spanish. For example, you have red, which is roja, you have white for blanca, you have black for negra. I know it sounds bad, I'm sorry, that's just how it says in Spanish. And then we have other colors that I'm going to talk about right now. We have her, let's see, which one do I have? But yeah, like I said earlier, her robe colors are not just their own thing. They're connected to her directly, and they are simply used as a manifestation of her. As you can probably tell, I'm reading from a script when I'm talking about this, so I'm sorry if I'm a little bit, outed. But yes, I'm going to look at it real quick, and then I can talk about more of the robe colors. Okay, I read them a little bit, because we're not all perfect, alright? So, when it comes to Santa Muerte, she's often known as seen in her rainbow robe. Her rainbow robe is a connection between all of her colors, all of her aspects, all of what she rules over. It is the most powerful robe that you can have on her statue. The most powerful in every single way. It can aid in any kind of spell you want to do. If it incorporates her traditional colors, that is even better. In this robe aspect, she shows her dominion. I often see this robe color combined with a crown, her globe, her scythe, and other things, which I will talk about later in her symbol association as part of the video. Her rainbow aspect shows all of the things that you can call upon her for. All the blessings, all the light, all the warmth. Every single aspect of everything you can call upon her for. This is her number one robe. But she has other robes too, besides that are kind of confusing for beginners. But just know that her rainbow robe is like her white robe, but way stronger. Just think about that. This is like you have been devoted for a couple of years now. You have it, you're ready to go with it. Alright, it's everything all at once. So it can be like that. Alright, everything all at once. Now, of course, since we're talking about her robes, we have to talk about her more well-known robes and what they're used for. So first of all, let's talk about her golden robe. Her golden robe is used for wealth magic. It is used for prayers for wealth, finances, and economic power. It is used for promotions, for anything that involves around money. These kind of robe colors will often have their statues with coins at the feet of Santa Muerte, symbolizing her role as a giver of money and wealth. I personally have this upon my rosary, and I'm starting to call upon it more. This is an aspect I personally had not worked too in depth with, but it's on my rosary, so I'm going to start doing it more. Other colors that are part of her robe are la verde, or the green robe, which I'm going to guess what that is. It's not for money. Surprisingly, I was like, okay, I bet her green robe is for money. I was like, nope, it's not. Her green robe is actually for legal reasons. Her green robe, and her aspect as Santa Muerte la Verte, is not for wealth or money, surprisingly. If you live in the US, your money is most likely green, but other countries, they pay in coin. They pay in different kinds of coins. So you often see this reflected in her statue when it comes to the golden Santa Muerte, not the green Santa Muerte. Because like I said, the green Santa Muerte is the legal matters Santa Muerte. This Santa Muerte will often be depicted holding the scales of justice. Let me see if I can get this off real quick for y'all. The scales of justice. This is the color that Santa Muerte is associated with when it comes to people praying to her for protection against unlawful persecution or unlawful pursuit by the police or by people who are in law enforcement. This is the robe color to protect against corrupt police officers and to restore equilibrium. If someone has harmed you and you are going to court with them, this would be the robe color that you should call upon and that you will call upon. Her green robe aids in protection against things that would cause you harm legally. And that can be used in any scenario. If someone's trying to harm you financially, alright, do a Santa Muerte and Verte and gold statue. It can be paired with many different things for this. I personally like to pair it with Santa Muerte la Negra. I don't have any statue for her yet, but that's one I really want to get. Now, let's talk about Santa Muerte Azul, which is the Santa Muerte blue, another one of my favorites, which actually is on my necklace. This necklace has like a bunch of beads on it that all have different colors. Santa Muerte Azul is the Santa Muerte of daily life. She is the Santa Muerte of communication and connection to others. She is the Santa Muerte understanding of communication, which is why a lot of people who worship her will often have blue Santa Muerte with them when it comes to education and education matters that revolve around education. She's a Santa Muerte of general life and helps you connect and communicate to anyone, anything. This Santa Muerte color is really good also for protecting from the evil eye. Blue will always be a good color to protect from envious eyes, especially when it comes to Santa Muerte. Santa Muerte does not play when it comes to protection, so Santa Muerte Azul is a very, very good color to call upon. Now let's talk about the mix of red and blue, which is her purple aspect, which actually has kind of nothing to do with the other two aspects I just talked about, surprisingly. Purple, and her purple aspect as La Pupua, is the connector between the physical and spiritual world. It is the color of the mystic. This ties to Santa Muerte's nature as a goddess, she who knows over the mystic arts. You can use this color to help understand spells, to connect with Santa Muerte and the other side, to communicate with the dead and other spirits that serve underneath Santa Muerte. And those are the robe colors that I want to talk about. Now with that, let's get into her associations, crystals, herbs, and other things. Let's do it. Now, what are the symbols associated with Santa Muerte? What are her herbs? What are her sacred animals? That's a question I ask myself. And also, what are her crystals? That is a question I often ask myself. So, I have figured out what those symbols can be. Starting with her sacred animals. Her sacred animal is the owl. For the owl is often depicted, you will always see it with Santa Muerte in a way. See? And even on this rosary that I have here, there's also an owl at the very bottom. These little red dots, an owl. Santa Muerte's sacred animal is her owl. The owl often has connections in Mexican folk tradition as being seen as like an omen for a bruja or a witch. And the owl connects to Santa Muerte in her darker aspects, for the owl is seen as a symbol of wisdom, but also a symbol of death in many cultures. The owl is Santa Muerte's animal for both these reasons. It's a symbol of death and a symbol of wisdom. Santa Muerte is associated with this animal, for she is known to be able to guide through dark times, as the owl can see within the dark and knows how to prosper in dark times. Another one of her sacred animals is the serpent, which you don't really see that much on her statues. But the serpent is about transformation and change, which she rules over, as she is death itself. Death is illumination. Death is reincarnation. So as the serpent sheds its skin, it brings forth new life and rebirth, which she rules over. Another one of her animals, this animal is sacred to the Mexicans, is the jaguar. The jaguar is associated with Santa Muerte for its ability of protection, strength, endurance through hard times. It's a very powerful animal, and this animal is associated with Santa Muerte, specifically Santa Muerte Azteca. Another one of her animals is the bat, as it is able, like the owl, to navigate in darkness, in dark times. It is also seen as a symbol of death, and often seen in many scenes of horror, which of course connects to darkness. This animal is associated with Santa Muerte, obviously for its aspects as a sort of nighttime creature, which she rules over. She is a patron goddess of the night and those who work amongst the night. Those are her associated animals. Now you might be asking me, what are her associated plants? Because that is the thing that gets everybody, okay? Everybody gets, confused on that part. Her number one sacred item, plant-wise, of worship is her apple. If you are into Santa Muerte, you know she loves her apples. Apples are often seen as offerings to the dead. They are connected and seen as the fruit of the tree of knowledge, which reflects to her being a deity and goddess of knowledge. This apple is very sacred to her in her practice, for it really does connect to the arts of necromancy and forbidden knowledge that she rules over. She has many aspects that revolve around the undead, the dead, and knowledge and forbidden knowledge. The apple is her sacred offering, and it's important to at least offer her once a week if you are actively worshiping her full time, as in she is the only deity you are worshiping. Alright. Other trees and plants you can associate to her Santa Muerte is the yew tree, as in Y-E-W, not Y-O-U, okay? The yew tree is often seen as the tree of death, and often appears having bony white bark and flesh. This tree is highly toxic and very poisonous, but it is associated with death and to the other side, and is seen as a protector of its owner's grave. If a yew tree grows upon someone's grave, it is seen as a very powerful protective agent for that dead person. Other herbs that are associated with her are marigolds. Of course, in the time of Dia dos Muertos, I think I pronounced that hopefully right, but the marigold is often seen as a symbol of ancestors and an invitation for the dead to come and visit their families at the novena and the ofrenda. It is a very sacred, very, very sacred plant, and I would say it is her number one flower. It really is. Apples are her number one offering, but flowers, when it comes to flowers, marigolds are her flower. They are very tied to the dead and to the afterlife, and is very sacred. And people who often put up this ofrendas acknowledge that death is not evil or scary. So by putting that really deep meaning of those marigolds and giving them to Santa Muerte, really shows appreciation towards her, and appreciation towards her as a goddess of death. Other flowers that she likes, in my opinion, are white roses. The white rose is a very sacred, very holy flower that can be used in any form of magic, except for baneful magic, of course. You can still use the thorns for that though, but still. It connects her to the start of your worshiping process. If you're at the very start of your worshiping process, you want to give her white roses, as you're starting with the white robe. Once you are in, like, the Roja stage, you want to give her red roses, because they're associated with love, with protection. And the white rose is associated with purity and cleansing, like how the Blanca aspect is. And once you start getting into her Negra stage, you might have to start giving her things like tobacco. Tobacco is the offering for Santa Muerte la Negra. This can be obtained in the form of smokes, which are, those things. Those aren't too traditional, but tobacco is traditional in a way. Tobacco is very, very sacred, as it connects the afterlife and to the ancestors. Giving this to her is definitely what you should do if you are worshiping Santa Muerte la Negra. If you can find tobacco flower in the wild, you should pluck it up. If you can, of course, you have to be of legal age, and then give them upon her altar. This is a very sacred flower for her, because it really reflects on her aspect as a goddess of death and connection to others and connection to the spiritual realm. It is a very lovely plant that you can offer to her in your practice. Now, what are her symbols? People would ask. Santa Muerte, if you know anything about her, she's often depicted as holding the weighing scale, as in this scale that can put like that and like that. These scales are very similar to the scales of Anubis, or Anpu, who's also a god of death. Santa Muerte uses these scales very similarly when it comes to the weighing process, weighing the sins and the virtues of her worshippers. This really does show how caring she is, because she's willing to weigh your soul. She's not simply out after you. She is willing to give you chances even in the afterlife. This connects to her as a goddess of justice as well, for she will enact justice upon anyone or anything or any person that has harmed you in a way. She will ensure that justice and equilibrium are met, and that is what her scales symbolize. What does her hourglass mean? Hold on. Her hourglass is a representation of the flow of time. You will see death often depicted with an hourglass. The hourglass is a representation of mortal life and the passages of time and the rebirth that happens. Santa Muerte will carry many hourglasses with her for every single one of her worshippers, but she's often depicted only carrying one. The hourglass reflects her as a goddess of death and of the time of death, and also a goddess of rebirth. For whenever the hourglass has been emptied, it can be refilled on the other side. This connects her as a goddess that rules over the Saturnial aspects of time, over death itself, for she is death incarnate. Her other symbols and other associations can be the oil lamp, which is very similar to the torches of Hecate. The oil lamp is often associated with her to illuminate through darkness to guide in dark times, to bring warmth, light, and abundance. To those who ask for her guidance, to those who ask for her guidance and for her protection. It reflects her role as a goddess of change and transformation. And it connects her to you very deeply when you honor her with the oil lamp. Her other symbols include the scythe, which she often holds as she is the reaper. She is death incarnate. She is death personified. But the scythe is not a tool of violence. The scythe is a tool of harvest. Her scythe is used to harvest and collect the souls of the dead, so that they may be put into the afterlife, so they are put before the divine judges. This brings forth the transactional phase of death, of transitioning. This really connects to her aspect as a goddess of death, obviously because she is the reaper. But the scythe has a very deep and strong meaning. Her scythe can be used to cut down and bring forth change. It can cut down the old, bring death to the old, and bring promise to the new. The scythe is not a tool of violence. It is a tool of harvest. It is a simple tool for that. People will often see the scythe as a very scary symbol and associated with the reaper, but is associated with those who have grown their crop and will reap what they sow. Now, let's talk about her crystals. Her crystals, when it comes to her crystals, you have to match them with the robe color you're talking about. Alright, so for example, if you want to call upon La Negra, you would use black onyx. Black onyx is a supreme protector that wards off against evil. Black onyx can also cause disruptions in people's lives, which you can use in the aspect of Santa Muerte La Negra if you wish to punish someone for causing harm to you. So yes, that would work. Another stone for Santa Muerte La Negra is black tourmaline, strictly for strong protection due to its grounding properties. Other stones, like quartz. Quartz is very sacred to the native Mexicans, and it connects to her aspect as a goddess, she who can grant any desire, as clear quartz attunes to any energy frequency. It is a battery for anything that you wish for. You can use quartz in your practice to worship her, to honor her in her holy aspects. You can honor her with emerald, to call upon her aspect as La Verte, to call upon equilibrium and justice. You can also use Amazonite for this, with its green coloring. If you wish to call upon Santa Muerte La Roja, you would use red jasper or rose quartz to bring forth love, or you could use ruby to also bring forth love. When it comes to Santa Muerte and her golden color, gold is the color. Well, gold is the stone to use. Now, gold can be expensive, so you can use pyrite as well to bring forth abundance and protection. Her other crystals are lapis lazuli, which connects to her as Santa Muerte Azul, which connects to her aspect as a goddess of communication in everyday life when you use her azul aspect. Amethyst or sugalite are two very good stones that you can use when you are calling upon Santa Muerte La Purpua to connect you to the other side, to connect you to the mystic arts. Vivianite is a very good stone you can use, for it naturally grows on bones due to the calcium content. So you can use this stone to connect to Santa Muerte and her more death-based aspects. And now, with that, let's talk about Santa Muerte in my final notes. Santa Muerte is a very powerful, very respectable, very loving goddess. Treat her with respect, and she shall treat you with the gifts and wonders of the world. I had a troubling thing back in the day whenever I stopped worshiping her because of Abrahamic influence. But now she has taught me that my faith is my faith. And if I wish to include my personal view on Abrahamic religion into my place, then I shall do so. For whenever I was in doubt, I got her rosary in the mail, and that was a sign from her to connect to that part of my practice. Santa Muerte will forgive you of your trespasses if you mean it. If you mean that you love her. If you can show her and give her the trust that you love her and care about her and her worship. And with that, goodbye, witches. Have a blessed night. Hail Santísima Muerte. Amen. And with that, bye-bye.